In a candid interview with Esquire, the 54-year-old said he thought he might have cancer after discovering a painful lump while showering and immediately sought medical attention.
Many people know Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock, as one of the biggest stars in the world. From dominating the wrestling ring to becoming a Hollywood superstar, he built a reputation for strength, confidence, and success. For years, fans have admired his inspiring journey and larger-than-life personality. But now, at 54, a shocking development has left many people concerned. What exactly happened to Dwayne Johnson? Why are fans calling it absolutely devastating? And how could this unexpected situation affect the man millions have looked up to for decades? Dwayne Johnson Health Challenge. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has shared a worrying health experience after he found a painful lump on one of his testicles. He later explained this during an interview with Esquire. At first, Johnson said he hoped the lump would go away on its own. Like many people might do, he did not rush to the doctor immediately. He waited, expecting it to disappear without treatment. However, when the pain did not stop, he decided it was important to get it checked by a medical professional. After doctors examined him, they told him there were two possible causes for what he was feeling. The first possibility was testicular cancer, which is a serious type of cancer that affects the testicles. The second possible cause was epididymitis, which is an infection or swelling of a small tube at the back of the testicle that helps store and carry sperm. Both conditions can cause pain and swelling, so further tests were needed to be sure. To get a clearer answer, Johnson went for an ultrasound scan. This is a medical test that uses sound waves to create images of what is happening inside the body. Thankfully, the results showed that he was okay. The doctors confirmed that he did not have cancer and that everything was fine. Johnson later said, "By the way, I'm fine, but I didn't know that then, and the thing was really painful." This shows that even though he is healthy now, the waiting period was very stressful and frightening for him. During that time, he still had to continue with his normal work schedule. This made the situation even harder, because he had to deal with worry and uncertainty while still carrying out his professional responsibilities. Not knowing the outcome made the experience emotionally difficult, even though it ended well. Johnson's story is also an important reminder for men to pay attention to any unusual changes in their bodies, especially in the testicles. Finding a lump or feeling pain should not be ignored. Doctors say that checking early can make a big difference if something serious is happening. Although testicular cancer is not very common compared to other cancers, it is still something that should be taken seriously. One important fact is that it tends to affect younger men more than many other cancers. Medical experts explain that it is the most common cancer in males between the ages of 15 and 35. This makes awareness very important for teenagers and young adults. Health data also shows that most cases happen in younger people. Around 79% of testicular cancer cases are found in men who are 44 years old or younger. This information comes from cancer research records collected in the United States. How was his childhood? Was it a tough experience? Let's find out. Dwayne Johnson's childhood. Dwayne Johnson's childhood was filled with hardship, uncertainty, and struggles that few people knew about. In 1987, when he was just 15 years old, he returned to a small apartment in Honolulu with his mother, Ata. The apartment cost only $120 a week, but even that had become too expensive for them. When they arrived home, they found a padlock on the door and an eviction notice. His mother broke down in tears, wondering where they would go and how they would survive. The image of standing beside his crying mother, staring at that locked door, stayed with Dwayne for the rest of his life. He later said that moment left a deep scar that he carried inside him for years. Things had already been falling apart before that day. Just a week earlier, his mother's car had been repossessed because they could not keep up with the payments. Money was so tight that even paying rent was impossible. Eventually, they were forced to leave the island with no car, no home, and no clear plan for the future. By the age of 13, Dwayne had already lived in 13 different states. His father, Rocky Johnson, was a professional wrestler, but wrestling at that time did not bring huge paychecks. There were no multi-million-dollar contracts. Wrestlers often lived from one paycheck to the next, simply trying to get by. Because of this, the family moved constantly, never staying in one place for long and always living close to financial disaster. Dwayne spent parts of his childhood in places like California, New Zealand, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and Hawaii. Everywhere he went, he had to start over. He was always the new kid at school, surrounded by unfamiliar faces and without friends. Meanwhile, his mother stayed home raising him and sacrificing her own dreams. Dwayne later said that all she ever wanted was to be noticed and appreciated, but she rarely felt seen. Watching his parents fight affected him deeply. He not only saw the arguments, but also heard them, which he said was sometimes even worse. The stress, instability, and constant struggles left him angry and frustrated. Before he turned 17, Dwayne had been arrested several times for fighting, theft, and check fraud. He became involved in small-time crime and joined a group that stole from tourists in Waikiki. This led to several encounters with the police before he was even old enough to vote. Looking back, he did not see himself as a bad kid. Instead, he saw himself as an angry teenager trying to survive in a world that felt chaotic and unfair. At the same time, he discovered fitness and training. At 14, while getting into trouble, he was also spending hours at the local boys' club. He worked on the speed bag, punched the heavy bag, and lifted weights. Building his body became a way to cope with the fear and frustration he carried inside. He called it his eviction mentality, a mindset created by hardship and survival. He had no inheritance, no financial safety net, and no guarantees. All he had was determination, anger, and the desire to create a better future. Years later, his mother revealed that there were times when they could not even afford a Thanksgiving dinner and simply hoped someone would invite them over for a meal. This was the true reality of Dwayne Johnson's childhood. So, what challenges did he encounter? Was there anyone there to help him scale through? Let's find out. Dwayne Johnson's struggles. After being forced out of their home in Hawaii, the family moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Sadly, they were evicted again and later ended up in Pennsylvania, all within the same year, 1987. During this difficult period, Dwayne Johnson's life was filled with constant moving, uncertainty, and hardship. The experience left a deep mark on him and stayed with him for the rest of his life. When Dwayne was 15 years old, he went through one of the most painful moments of his childhood. His mother, Ata, attempted to take her own life by walking into traffic. Although she has no memory of what happened, Dwayne has never forgotten it. At the time, the family was living in Nashville. They had once again been torn apart by family problems. Ata had traveled from Hawaii to Tennessee to reunite with Dwayne and his father, Rocky Johnson. Their marriage, which had already been struggling, finally fell apart. In the middle of that heartbreak, Ata walked into oncoming freeway traffic. Young Dwayne rushed after her and pulled her to safety, saving her life. Years later, Dwayne said he was fortunate that things did not end in tragedy. But even though he saved his mother, the experience had a devastating effect on him. He fell into a deep depression. He later recalled reaching a point where he no longer wanted to do anything or go anywhere. He said he cried constantly and felt completely overwhelmed by sadness. His mother remembered nothing about the incident afterward, but Dwayne described that period as the darkest time of his life. Imagine being only 15 years old, having your family evicted twice, and then finding yourself standing on the side of a highway, desperately pulling your mother away from speeding cars. It sounds like something from a movie, but it was Dwayne Johnson's real life. Looking back, he spoke openly about the pain he carried. He said the struggle and heartbreak were real, and that he felt completely devastated and depressed. Over time, both he and his mother were able to heal, but the experience taught him an important lesson. He learned that people who are suffering need support, kindness, and reminders that they are not alone. The teenager who would one day become Dwayne Johnson, one of the most famous entertainers and actors in the world, was shaped by these painful experiences. But at the time, nobody saw a future superstar. They only saw a young boy struggling to hold his life together. Like many children of wrestlers, Dwayne grew up around the wrestling business and met many legendary performers. Because his father was often away, another important figure stepped in to guide him. His grandfather, Peter Maivia, became a strong father figure and helped bring some stability into his life. However, even that source of comfort would not last forever. The instability of Dwayne's early years had already planted something deep inside him, a mixture of fear, determination, and a powerful desire to succeed. Years later, he said that being evicted broke his heart. He made a promise to himself that he would do everything possible to make sure his family would never lose their home again. For a teenager who had been arrested several times, watched his mother nearly lost her life, and moved from place to place, without ever feeling settled, that promise became his lifeline. That promise was also the beginning of the drive and determination that would later inspire millions of people around the world. But the journey from a troubled teenager in Nashville to a global superstar was far from easy. How did he get to the spotlight? Was it an easy journey? If not, how did he overcome it? Let's take a closer look. Dwayne Johnson's early career. Football was supposed to be Dwayne Johnson's escape from a difficult life. During years filled with constant moving, financial struggles, and trouble around him, football became the dream he held on to. He believed that if he could become a professional football player, everything would change. He would buy his parents their first home, never have to worry about being evicted again, and finally build a better life for himself. His hard work paid off when he earned a football scholarship to the University of Miami, one of the top football programs in the country. For the first time in his life, he had stability. He had a place to live, a team that felt like family, and a clear goal. For a while, the chaos of his childhood seemed far behind him. During his 4 years with the Miami Hurricanes, Johnson played in 39 games and recorded 77 tackles. While those numbers were not extraordinary, they were enough to give him his first real taste of success. More importantly, they showed him that all the effort he had put into improving his life and staying away from crime and poverty could lead to something better. But his football career was soon hit by a series of serious injuries. He suffered a torn Achilles tendon and underwent 5 knee surgeries during his college years. Despite his talent and potential, things became even worse when he injured his shoulder. The coaching staff replaced him with another player, Warren Sapp, a former tight end who was moved to Johnson's position. Sapp would later become one of the greatest players in football history. After that, Johnson found himself spending much of his time as a backup player. With Sapp excelling in the role, Johnson's chances of being selected in the NFL became much smaller. Then another injury during his senior year crushed his hopes of reaching the NFL. While Johnson struggled, many of his teammates achieved the success he had dreamed about for years. Players like Warren Sapp signed huge NFL contracts worth millions of dollars. Johnson watched the people he had played alongside reach financial security and success, while his own dream slipped away. In 1995, Johnson went undrafted in the NFL, largely because of his long history of injuries. After college, he signed with the Calgary Stampeders in the Canadian Football League. However, he was placed on the practice squad and was released just 2 months into the season. Suddenly, the dream he had spent years chasing was over. When his football career ended, Johnson had only $7 to his name. Not $700, not $7,000, just $7. Football had always been his plan. He believed it would allow him to give his parents the home they never had and provide the security his family had always lacked. But that dream never became reality. The loss hit him hard. Johnson later revealed that he experienced several periods of depression in his life, and losing football was one of the most painful. He felt isolated, trapped inside his own thoughts, and completely alone. At the time, mental health was rarely discussed, especially among men, so he did not fully understand what he was going through. At 23 years old, he found himself back in his parents' small apartment with no career, no money, and no idea what the future held. He spent many days sitting on the couch, feeling defeated, and wondering what would happen next. How was his relationship with his father? Was it the type every child would be proud of? Let's find out. Dwayne's relationship with his father. Dwayne Johnson's relationship with his father, Rocky Johnson, was one of the most important and painful parts of his life. It helped shape the man he became, both in his career and as a father. Sadly, their story ended in a heartbreaking way. At his father's funeral, Dwayne described Rocky as an amazing friend, a complicated husband, and a complicated father. He said Rocky was a wonderful friend to many people, but things were different when it came to his own family. That difference became one of the deepest hurts in Dwayne's life. He once said that his father seemed to have a limited ability to show love. Rocky himself had a difficult childhood. He was forced out of his home when he was only 13 years old. Dwayne often reflected on that pain, saying that was the man who raised him. Rocky Johnson was a pioneer in professional wrestling. He became the first black Georgia heavyweight champion and won the NWA television championship twice. He also made history as the first African-American WWF World Tag Team Champion. In 2008, he was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by his son before WrestleMania 24. Inside the wrestling ring, Rocky was admired as a hero. Outside the ring, however, life was far more complicated. One of the most painful memories Dwayne carried involved his father. When Dwayne was 15, he and his mother were evicted from their apartment in Hawaii. His mother asked Rocky if Dwayne could stay with him in Tennessee while she handled things in Hawaii, and then joined them later. What followed became one of the darkest periods of Dwayne's life. Rocky's absence, personal struggles, and choices played a major role in a night that Dwayne would never forget. By the age of 13, Dwayne had already lived in 13 different states. By 17, he had been arrested for fighting, check fraud, and theft. He always knew his relationship with Rocky was difficult, but he did not fully understand just how complicated it was until his father died in January 2020. As Dwayne became famous, first in the WWF and later in Hollywood, his relationship with Rocky remained strained. There were good moments. Rocky eventually trained Dwayne when he decided to become a wrestler after his football dreams ended. At first, Rocky was hesitant about his son entering wrestling, but he later helped him develop his skills. There were also moments of pride when Rocky watched his son entertain millions of fans around the world. Still, there was always some distance between them and many issues that were never fully resolved. Things became even more difficult in 2019 when Rocky released his memoir, Soul Man: The Rocky Johnson Story. Dwayne was shocked to find that the book included a foreword credited to him, even though he had never written it. The book also presented opinions and stories that Dwayne believed were untrue. He said that if the truth were blue, the version told in the book was red. Dwayne confronted his father about it. Rocky claimed he did not know about the false foreword and blamed the mistake on the ghostwriters. The disagreement led to what Dwayne later described as the biggest fight they had ever had. The argument took place during Christmas 2019 and left a deep divide between them. Just 1 month later, tragedy struck. Rocky Johnson passed away on January 15, 2020, at the age of 75. A few days before his death, he tried to call Dwayne. Dwayne was attending one of his children's games and did not answer. He planned to call back later, but he never got the chance. A day or two later, Rocky was gone. The missed phone call, the unresolved argument, and the silence that followed became permanent. So, what do you think about Dwayne Johnson's shocking revelation? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.